Hi, this is Justin from Money Bootcamp. This is the first of our Friday questions. Today I'm going to talk a little bit of investing because I got a few questions from my financial planning clients about investing. So typical questions I get asked are, how do I start investing? Should I be investing? And more lately, what do I need to know about Bitcoin? Should I be investing in Bitcoin? So for now, I'm just going to say a straight no on the Bitcoin until we go through the rest of the video. You can decide at the end by yourself. But first, we'll just focus on, should you be investing at all? If you think you need to be investing, just slow down for a second and ask yourself a few questions, right? So when you think about investing, you want to stop and just answer these questions first. Before you do anything, you want to do a quick assessment on yourself and ask yourself, do you have any savings? Do you have an emergency fund? If you don't have an emergency fund or any savings, you shouldn't be investing. This is the place you need to start at. So you want to look at how many months of expenses do you have. If you don't have a couple of months expenses covered in savings, you need to slow down and not worry about investing for now. With an emergency fund in place or a couple of months savings, if you have 3 months savings in place, 6 months savings in place, maybe you're actually in a good place to start investing. If you only have a few hundred extra euro, you're probably not in a great place to be looking at to be investing. You want to build up a little bit of savings first, because if you need to draw some funds out, if something unplanned happens or a big expense comes up, you want to be able to cover that with your savings or your emergency fund rather than looking to sell some of your investments. Because if you sell investments at the wrong time, you can lock in losses and lose money. Say if that was in the stock market and you had to pull it out at a bad time, then you would be actually locking in that loss. You can also look at this in other ways. Of some investment products will have timelines that you can't pull your money out, or you're going to have fees put on you for pulling your money out before the term that was specified originally. So you can get out of that by just keeping your cash buffer in place. By having that cash buffer, you're not going to have to worry about that. Okay. The other thing to consider here is if you have debt. So if you have high interest debt that you're paying, you want to focus on that first rather than invest. So if you have a lot of money on a credit card and you're paying 18, 20, 25%, you want to focus on that before you even look at putting money into investments. So there's credit card definitely should come first, and if you've any other debts such as a car, a student loan, anything else, a lot of people have a mortgage and they're typically a lot lower rates due to the kind of how mortgages work. But if you have anything else debt-wise, you might want to consider that before you look at investing. At this point, we've considered your savings, your debt. You also want to ask yourself, do you have a pension and are you tax efficient? So a lot of people will look at investing and they will have ignored their pension, or they'll have ignored ways to become tax efficient and pay less taxes. But if you want to invest money, normally when you invest it, you'll be investing it in markets, but you'll have paid income tax and other taxes on that before you use it. So if you get paid €1,000 and you take 800 or 700 in tax after tax, you're looking to invest with the after tax money. Whereas if you have a pension, you can put that money in before your tax is taken out. So you can actually invest the entire €1,000 rather than the 700. You will have some of that money locked in because it's a pension and you can't just pull out as much. So they're the trade-offs. You'll have the tax benefits or you'll have the ability to take it out. So it depends what you're looking for. If you don't really care and if this is a long-term investment, say you actually want to keep it for your retirement, it makes a lot more sense to bulk up your pension and put more money in pre-tax. Although it will be locked in, it means you're going to get huge tax benefits before, and then it's going to grow tax-free as well. Whereas if you have taxable investments, you're paying with taxed money, but you also have to pay tax on whatever growth is in those investments. So if you take money out of an investment that you've had a gain on, you're going to have to pay capital gains tax, which is around 30% right now Or if you're in certain investment products, there's drawdown periods as well where you'll get taxed depending on how you take it out. The last thing you need to do is do a bit of a risk assessment for your personal situation. So much like financial planning, this is based around you. The risk assessment is very personal to you, and it depends on the risks that are there in your life. So if you have kids, you're going to want to take less risk than if you don't have kids. If you have more kids, you're going to want to take less risk. If your kids are a bit older, you can take a bit more risk. If they're very young and you're going to have to pay for them for the next 10, 20 years, again, you might not want to take a lot of risk then. If you have an emergency fund in place, you have a lot of savings in place, that's going to mitigate those risks, but you need to consider this. There's also the level of safety implicit in your job. So if you're in a job that is just a contract that could go at any time, that's a lot more of a risk than if you don't have a contract. So if you're a permanent employee and your job is a lot more secure, although certain sectors are very safe, so if you're a teacher or a nurse, your job might be a lot more safe than someone working in a cyclical industry like mining or banking, where if something bad happens in the industry, a lot of people will get fired or made redundant. So you want to think about your individual risk levels, and does that mean you can invest more? Maybe you want to invest less, or you want to invest in more risky assets or less risky assets. A really good rule of thumb I heard a few years ago was, if you are in a risky job, you want to have very boring investments, and if you're in a very boring job, you want to have very risky investments. Now, that might be a little bit of over exaggeration, but it sticks a good point in mind of, if you have a risky job, you really want to have safe investments, and if you have a safer job, you can have some higher risk investments. You might want to, but you definitely can have the ability to, because the inherent safety of your job. With all those things in mind, you want to consider that before you look at investing. I know we haven't got into investing too much in this video, but you want to consider that before you individually look at investing. So think about what your savings are like. Think about your debt and your debt situation. If you can pay off debt first, or should you? If you have a pension in place, maybe it's better to put your pension or bulk up your pension rather than invest separately. Then after that, you want to consider your own risks. This has been our Friday question about investing.